Hello and welcome back to the Seven Figure Standard podcast. I'm Mykie Stiller, joined by my co-host Arash Vossoughi, and today we're going to be talking about the invisible wall. So this is why high achievers stay stuck and how to break through. If we're talking to you, you're in the right place. Arash, how are you doing?
I'm great, Mykie. How are you?
I am doing great. So when we say invisible wall, what are you thinking?
There's just literally, if you imagine a brick wall between where you are and where you want to be, every one of us has it. Everyone has an invisible wall. You can't see it, but you feel it. It's like, you should be doing something, but you have resistance that holds you back. It's the gap between where you are now and where you could be. So think about this, Mike. Everyone is smart, in my opinion. They've achieved things others admire. It's all relative, right? Yet deep down inside each of us, there's room for more. You're nowhere near your true potential. We keep hitting this wall. We can't pinpoint it, but we know it's there, right? So what I've discovered in over 20 years of this, achievers don't fail because they lack knowing what to do. They're just not doing it because their identity hasn't caught up and they don't look at it that way. So what is an invisible wall? It's the gap between what you consciously want and what you subconsciously believe you deserve. Okay? And you want to understand where it shows up is through plateau. You plateau your income, you plateau your scaling of your business, despite so much grinding, so much hard working, right? Success is one area. Another area could be health. It could be relationships. It could be who's in your circle. It could be like, are you willing to put yourself into an environment with people with much higher standards because you don't feel comfortable? That would be another example of a wall. And so the cycle of 2 steps forward, 2 steps back. That's the wall that I'm talking about.
And it sounds like you gave the wall a feeling at the beginning. You said it feels like resistance.
Yeah, but it's resistance, but we're not honest with ourselves what it is. So we never define what it is. So, but we know it's there, right? Like, what is that hidden commitment? Like somebody wants to get healthy, but they overeat, drink alcohol. That would be an example of a wall. Somebody who wants to scale their business, but they operate their business through scarcity. That would be the wall. Somebody who wants to go and put themselves in live events, but they never do it because they're always looking at, well, what is it going to cost me to fly there? What is it going to cost me the hotel? But what is it going to cost you not to be there? What is that one idea that it's going to cost you? These are what really, if you're honest with yourself, you're going to be like, yep, that's me. Yep, that's me. And then what you do with that information is what breaks through the wall.
I love that. Okay, so we call it an invisible wall, I'm assuming, because it's not immediately obvious what it is holding you back. And do you get to the bottom of that by asking questions, investigating? Like, how do you get to the bottom of figuring out what that gap is?
Well, you're just honest with yourself. You observe yourself and you're honest what the wall is, right? And then how do you break through it? You make a decision. Like, I'm done. I'm not going to tolerate this. When you make a definite, irrevocable, unshakable, no shit, no kidding, committed decision, like I'm going deep in this because that's how important it is, you literally knock down the wall. You knock down the wall so strong and you're on your way to success. But why do people do it? They're going through strategy. I need more strategy. You don't need more strategy. You need more transformation. You need an obsession of transformation because you already know what to do, but why aren't you doing it? So when we look at this, the invisible wall is never strategy. It's always us. It's always us. Like, you can give me any strategy, and if I don't have the right mindset, if I'm not certain about, like, this is what I'm doing, then the strategy is not going to work, right? But here's the thing that I want everyone to understand. To crush this wall, it begins with deciding that I'm going to change my life. When you change, everything changes. it's not going to change because you have more tactics. I mean, think about how many tactics people have. It happens when you understand you, then decide to upgrade you. Because here are the truth, like the big shifts with this. Change doesn't happen in isolation. You can't transform alone. So, like, if you could, you'd already do it, right? Everything is like the type of environment you're around. Shift number 2 is information doesn't create transformation. Immersion and application creates transformation. And the third shift, in my opinion, is like you must experience it. You must behave out of your identity. Those are the big shifts that will take you from where you are to where you want to go.
You said something interesting at the beginning. You said every single one of us has an invisible wall. And so what I take that to mean is that even when you break through the wall in front of you right now, there's going to be another wall because you're going to want to constantly keep moving forward and keep creating progress. So I think a lot of times we can trick ourselves into thinking like, we're going to get to this place or we're going to get to our goal and then there's going to be no more resistance. There's going to be, no more obstacles. It's going to be just perfect. And that does not happen. And I think it's good too to have realistic expectations. So we talk a little bit about how you break through one wall and then you break through the next one. You just do it one at a time.
It's just attitude. Like we did an episode regarding this question on embracing the suck. That's what you're talking about. Like each level demands us to break a new level of suck. So you get to one transformation, you think, oh, I'm there. The universe will find a way to humble us. You want to keep changing. The essence of our being is for growth and expansion. So it's not about committing to a thing or necessarily committing to one goal. It's committing to the journey. Once you hit one goal, you want to set another goal really fast. But, I think it's important because you got to look at like the positive side of transformation and the cost if you don't transform and why people stay stuck. They have really good goals. Like I think a lot of people, at least that I'm in encounter with, they have really good goals. But the goals are bigger than their identity. And our identity is what drives our daily actions. So that's why I'm always saying, like, how can I collapse time for our clients, for our people on the podcast, is you collapse time by taking actions before you're ready. But then you look at, okay, where's the wall created from? It's coming from your old paradigms. They're outdated. You're still running an operating system that was built years ago. So we've got to constantly be willing to upgrade our thinking and upgrade our programming. And then we're settling for comfort, waiting for the perfect time, obsessing over results instead of obsessing about, I'm going to crush who I was yesterday. And these are what I call the hidden costs of staying behind the wall. Like, what are the costs by doing the things that I said? Your income is going to be capped. You're going to miss opportunities. And then you have an emotional cost, right? Frustrations, being sick and tired of being sick and tired, killing your confidence, burning out. Why are people burning out? They burn out because they doggedly do something harder and harder. And I always say there's a cost in everything by for me, I'm driven by my family. Like that cost is going to cost my kids. It's going to cost the people I'm closest to in my family. I always want to be a great example to them. I want to be a great example to my brother. I want to be a great example to my kids, my wife, my cousins. The wall is costing you far more than breaking through ever, all of them, So
Arash,
that's where...
You said that you think a lot of people have good goals or great goals even. Do you think that they struggle with having equal commitment? Like, is their commitment too weak?
Yeah, they don't have commitment. They have a goal, but they don't decide to change their life. Like every goal that I set, I have to change my life again. It kind of sounds exhausting, but to me, it's exhilarating,
I have an analogy. This is probably a terrible analogy, but I'm going to give it anyways. So when I was a kid, I used to play on like a Nintendo 64, I think it was like an old Nintendo, Mario Brothers. And you would get to the next level and each level didn't get easier. Each level got
Yeah.
harder, but you got better. And so I feel like this is the similar thing. Like you break through the invisible wall, the next one's going to be more challenging, but it's kind of like what you said, embracing the suck or doing hard better. You get better. So in a way, it gets easier, but it's a harder challenge. You just got better.
Yeah, I mean that's a good analogy because that's life, right? Like I think just like I can only look at myself like how much controlled attention I put on transformation, and that's why I get better every day. That's why I change. Like, but change is important to me. To everybody, what the challenge is for people, they want a better life. They want to live like the 1%, but they don't decide to change like the 1% does behind the scenes. So they don't model their behaviors. The 1% are at live events. The 1% are not just listening to what I'm saying, they're implementing what I'm saying. The 1% are constantly studying other people's models who are further than them. So a lot of people create goals, and I could speak like very intelligently about this because I used to be this, where I'd set a goal, but I didn't change. And I didn't decide to change. I strive for the goal instead of change my standards. So the price of winning is always practice and discipline. How do you change your identity so to match up with a goal? Every decision you make from the goal. Your mindset must, and I want you to hear me here when I say this, it must operate on the same frequency of the goal. And the only way you could do that is making every day, day one, just for today, I'm making decisions from my goal. But then you have to think, feel, and act like that person. So to achieve our big goals, you first have to accept that idea and sell yourself on that idea. This is what I'm doing. And nobody may believe it. Even you may not believe it. But you'll start believing it in 30 days by doing that every day, every day, every day. But understand, the paradigm's going to fight you. And it's going to try to control you. That's why our dream has to be a relentless obsession, or else your paradigm's going to win. It's got to be an obsession.
Raj, I don't think we can emphasize enough that you can't think your way through the wall. You have to act your way through the wall.
Yeah.
I think that's so important. Thinking has a huge part, but I think so many times people want to consume information. They want to hope for a better life or hope that their goal happens without doing what's necessary.
Yeah, like what I've discovered, it's interesting because I have like conflicting perspectives about this because you're right. You're super right. But we don't act unless we think in a certain way. So I know what you're saying. Mm-hmm. And that's why I said I have conflicting perspectives about it. Because what you're really saying, the person who is not acting, they're actually not thinking. They're kind of like when we were in school. I'm just going to study this, memorize it, but they don't make it a part of your identity. So my perspective is our greatest responsibility in life is to think at the highest level. Like I always want to 10x my thinking. And that's going to cause me to act. Now, when you act before you're ready, that's thinking. That is actually thinking because you're like, no, I'm betting on myself. That is a form of thinking. So we're both saying it the same way, just in a different way. And I'm trying to like really communicate this effectively to the audience so they understand it. I always just share this story because when I was first getting mentored by my mentor, I'd been studying this for 3 years and he said, can I be frank with you? And I said, yeah. He said, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. And I started laughing and I said, you're right. And he said something that changed the course of my life. He said, you don't know this, you know about it. So what we were talking about before, the person who doesn't act, they don't know it, they know about it. When you act, you have a visceral experience. And what happens is you literally break that wall. How do you break that wall? Through action. Your awareness changes through experience. You could change awareness through study, but your experience is going to change it. But the moment you decide you're done settling, that good enough is never going to be a part of you anymore, you are knocking that wall on its ass. You're literally knocking it on its ass. And then what's going to start happening, you're naturally going to start getting in proximity with the fulfillment of what is essential to achieve your goal. That might be people, that might be mentors, That might be just a different version of you. It's really all of the above. So I want everybody to think of this. Mike, I want you to think about this too. Where in your life do you keep bumping into this invisible wall? And I want everyone to write it down. There's some area of your life you're doing that. Then you've got to decide to take one action today that your old self won't. We got to kill off your old self. We got to bury that version of you. Change never happens with more information. It happens with becoming a different person. And like, I'm forever obsessed with introducing people to a version of themselves they've never met before. And that's where it's going to take on a whole new level of itself.
Arash, let's talk about the importance of your approach or your attitude when coming up against the invisible wall. You know, you could approach the wall timidly. You could approach this invisible wall like, with grumbles, or you could be like, let's go. Like, this is my opportunity. I'm going to be better because of this. On the other side of this wall is, my breakthrough, my goal. So I want to talk about the importance of your approach too.
Well, the approach is kind of like what you said. The first domino is always decision. Once you make a decision, everything changes. Like, think about anything anyone's done great in their life. It didn't just naturally happen. It happened because the cause was a decision that I'm done settling. I'm done being sick and tired of being sick and tired. But once that first domino falls, everything in your life is going to start shifting. That's why when the decision gets made, you're going to embody that new version of you that naturally attracts the results that you've been chasing. And that's why it's so magical.
Yeah. And then whenever you get to the next level, some people, you call it drinking your own Kool-Aid. How do you make sure that you are like always on your toes, always ready to go, not like back on your heels? I don't know how, you don't like sit back for a second.
Well, you're going to know because you're taking actions you've never taken before. You're going to remove all the patterns that are blocking you. What are those patterns? Waiting for the perfect time. Mm-hmm. Being controlled by the results. Being attached to your old story. Playing small. Your standards are going to change. That's how you know you're not that person. We want to measure our activities, not our results. Our results are just feedback. But when you're changing, it's like you have like a different version of you that you're showing up. Like, you're so decisive. You're so much more courageous. We all have negative patterns that hold us back. And we've got to identify those negative patterns so we could bust through the wall. But you have to have a reason. Like, I've never changed unless I really had a reason to change. Have you?
No.
I mean, I haven't. I don't know anyone who has, but when you start doing this regularly, change is going to be your expectation. Change is going to be your commitment, and change is going to become your standard. Settling for good enough instead of demanding greatness, that's not it. You're going to be frustrated 5 years from now. You're going to see people pass you so far who decided to change, but that could be you. I want it to be you. I want you to understand and not pay the cost of staying the same. There is such a cost for staying the same.
You just brought up such a great point as far as expectation goes. You're someone who always has a big goal. I'm someone who always has a big goal. I've heard you say, if I don't create a quantum leap every 90 days, if I don't win every day, if I don't transform every day, I'm pissed. Like, I'm not happy. And that's because you've set that expectation of yourself.
Well, I know if I don't, I've been just existing. I haven't been creating. I've been waiting for something instead of going and getting it. So that's why I'm not attached to winning and losing, because I know I have to lose to get to my wins. And, I used to play it safe. I used to be a watcher in my life. So, I mean, I can speak to this. And I always tell our clients, like, if I could do it, you could do it. Like, I'll show you what to do. Like, forever, direction is what people are missing. They just don't have the right direction. Like, there's people who think in scarcity all day long, but they think they're abundant because they study. It's not true. Like, when we start understanding that, and understanding that in order to achieve a quantum leap, you can't rely on your past self's thinking. That's why we want to every day upgrade our thinking. Everything in your world, including yourself, will look different when you decide to change. Like you're going to look younger, like you're going to look lighter. And that's what happens. The higher the quality of your thinking, the higher the quantity of your results.
I love that. Say it one more time.
The higher the quality of your thinking, so you're now thinking much bigger, better thoughts that are serving you, the higher the quality of your results. You're not just going to get results once in a while. You're going to get results all the time. That's why I say our greatest responsibility is how we think. No one can decide how I'm going to think but me. And because you work with me every day, how illogical I am with my deadlines and timelines and thinking. I just accept it. And then that's all. I don't even think anything of it. That's just what it is.
Let's jump into an action step for today.
I want you to ask yourself and define and identify and discover what your wall is. Maybe it's towards health. Maybe you've crushed it in business and you've been plateauing for the last 90 days. Maybe that's your wall. Maybe your wall is excuses. Maybe your wall is negotiating with yourself. Maybe your wall is like, I'm the smartest person in my circle, that you want a bigger circle, but you don't know how to find it, And I'll tell you, get in my circle. Come to my event in Dallas. Your life will never be the same. Imagine if you had somebody giving you a blueprint. That'll knock your wall on its ass. So, this is what we have to do. Every jump in our life is non-linear from the past. Okay? And we've got to understand that. Impossible goals demand us to change, but they demand you to get out of your comfort zone. When you grow, God, everything in your whole world is going to change. But it's not just you who you're going to grow. You're going to grow people around you. And all of a sudden, as a family or as a business or as a leader, you're going to start attracting somebody far greater. But understand this, and I hope you guys accept this idea. You are born to win. You're not born to lose. You're born to win. You're born to succeed because you have genius inside of you. Okay? I don't have any more potential than you. Whenever I look at somebody who's further than me, I go, if they can do it, I can do it. And just know, wealth, success, freedom always flows from you, not to you. And get in a habit of always blessing other people's successes. Like, don't compete against them. I want you to bless them because you're just going to attract more good to yourself.
Arash, thank you so much. This turned out to be one of my favorite episodes, and I hope all of you are fired up now to go bust through that invisible wall and get to your next breakthrough. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, leave us a rating and review, and of course, share this with your friends and family members or on social media, and we'll see you next week for another episode of the 7-Figure Standard podcast. Thanks, Arash.
Thanks, Mykie.
Thank you for listening to this episode of 7-Figure Standard. We hope you found the insights and strategies helpful on your journey to success. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a rating and review on your favorite podcast platform to help us reach more people like you. To learn more about Arash and Mykie and how Voss Coach & Co. can help you achieve your goals and reach new levels of success, visit vosscoachandco.com. Thank you again for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode of 7-Figure Standard.